flattening, screwing all of the shorts who got involved prematurely, right, on the breakdown here, not a lower high underneath, right?
Just going
So
back down to not the 15,
from a
we
short
want
risk
the
reward
hourly.
perspective, right, you've got a tight stop. It's not like you're completely flattened. The idea on the weekly time frame was, right, if we just do something like this, I mean, risk reward wise, right, maybe you're even still in this thing thinking that it's going to break down, but 132.25 kind of holds the key out of NVIDIA. All right, so just going back down to not the 15, we want the hourly, and we'll go with a default drawing set. Here we go. So the idea on the trade, right, on the gap up, gap rules are in force. If we can support here, leave this partially unfilled, and then you want to see what? A rally in the upward direction. Personally, I'm still a believer that a lower high can be set on the daily time frame chart. We just made a lower low. So on the daily time frame chart, we can really still get some sort of lower high, right? Something that looks like this still keeps the downtrend in force. Highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lows, lower lows, lower lows, and officially the breakdown of the neckline here keeps the downtrend in force. So I'm not a firm believer in like, okay, ready to rock and roll new all-time highs inbound until we get some sort of consolidation over the 137.25 to produce an equal high here. And then as I've talked about in the past, over 140, I think it rock and rolls back to the upside, 146, and so on and so forth, right? So that's kind of my take on NVIDIA. That's where I continue to remain in terms of an analysis perspective on this one, right? So anyhow, big gap up this morning. Buyers rejoice, at least for a little while. 132.25 is your key support into the equal high. Stevie Wonder trade above that. 134.75 breaks. 137.25 should come quickly. Should come quickly, right? This is a thin structure retracement over here. Okay, so trades are potentially long here out of NVIDIA today. I would say it's a short if it fails underneath 132.25 and sets a lower high. That is I would have to go back to the short side here. I would say, okay, short term, it's got to be lower. Got to be lower underneath 132.25. If you cannot see any hold of 132.25, just look left, right? Big previous pivot low, support, then turned resistance. If that does not give you any response today, if you do not see a hold of 132.25, okay, put the shorts back on. Put the shorts back on. Underneath 132.25, looking for lower. 129.50, opening print of yesterday, if not just the low of day, right? And, you know, maybe not all in one fell swoop, but over time, that's the idea. All right, there we have it. NVIDIA, we've got 9:14 on the clock. Let's keep it moving. We've got Microsoft. What do we see over here in Softy? Beautiful. Oh, geez, my goodness. Whatever's been going on over the last little bit, maybe the FOMC decision leaked. All right, maybe the FOMC decision leaked. If this does not hold, right? If this does not hold this dotted line, which we're currently opening underneath, it falls kind of into a balance, right? And you know, it's annoying to keep doing this, but like you get the new balance not sponsored again, and 448 just becomes a key level, right? If you can hold over 448, you just remain in balance. Maybe there's risk reward along these lines, and you could find that. If you get some sort of brigade bolt under 448, I think it's very obvious, right? Double top neckline only is a short under 445. So, I mean, you've got multiple outcomes here that are reasonable. I would tend to think, though, in the midpoint of this range, near this 451.75, you really just do have more of a neutral opportunity, right? Neutral opportunity. I would not be slinging size here on Microsoft smack in the middle. The better trade would have been this for a long. It's a great setup. You have a multi-day high that breaks with a higher low above. Obviously not really a top-of-mind priority with the now forecast open down here. Prior to this little slump, absolutely, that was going to be a big trade idea for the morning. Over 455 would have been interesting for that continuation. Obviously, not so much in play here over the last couple of minutes with this downdraft. What else is going on? Satya sold. Oscar S. Is there a big Satya, of course, the CEO of Microsoft? Is there some big news announcement that he's selling? Is there some insider selling going on here? I'm just going to flip over to CNBC, see if there's any updates. Dow futures bounce after a 9-day losing streak. That's not what we're looking for. Anything? No. Anyways. Oh, they updated one of the headlines. Wednesday's biggest analyst calls: NVIDIA, Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, Expedia, Ollie's, and more. Okay. Anyways, back over to the graphs, the charts. Microsoft, nothing to do in the midpoint. I would say it becomes less attractive in the midpoint of this range. You got to wait for 448 or 455. Remember that we're in the business of taking good trades when they present themselves. There's nothing to do in the midpoint, right? You got to be at a level. Got to be at a level. Got to be at a level. These are not sixes. Those are just dots here and here. All right, moving along. Apple at fil. Looks great. I mean, breakout. This ideally would have been what we were looking for out of Microsoft today. If Microsoft could have opened near the equal highs, right, this is kind of what we would have been looking for. Obviously not the case. Opening back here, like this is, Microsoft relative to its price action is opening on an equivalent here, right? So anyhow, Apple getting back over to business. Obviously, it can afford what? It can afford a big time higher low over the previous resistance. So 250.50 is a top watch. If the pullback comes in there, I'll be looking out for double bottoms. I'll be looking out for inverted head and shoulders. I'll be looking out for hammer candles, right? Anything that forms support down here, anything that's indicative of buyers stepping up, really interested in risk, reward back up towards the highs, right? Exploiting the uptrend. Previous all-time high, 250.50. Very clean chart. Amazon, what else is going on here? Nancy is kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. This New Balance tried to break out once, wasn't really successful, but the sellers couldn't really keep prices depressed underneath that 229.75. So currently, I don't really think that there's not much to do in this little range here. I would give it a bullish edge. That's my one comment, right? I would say that this is a bullish edge as long as we're over 229.75 because the sellers got stuffed basically. I know Thanksgiving's over, but we'll use that little term again. Sellers got stuffed underneath that 229.75. Buyers have the edge over that level. We're currently in the midpoint of this little range thing in here. Very simple trade idea is just the Brigade Bolt up and into blue sky territories over 232.50, right? That is what we've got there. All right? That is that. So Amazon, all set on that. Clear chart. Let's move along to Google. Google slipping. I like it. Come on down, Google. I've been a little bit hard-headed about this particular thesis. I personally am very interested in trading this idea here, and I think it's because I've got some friends. I speak with people who are in the computer science space, trading related and non-trading related, and everybody is telling me like, quantum's cool, but the time horizon and business case is just not even close, right? It's something that we'll talk about in 25 years or whatever. So in the multiple conversations, not just from like one person anecdotally, not just from like Joe Schmo on the street who reads Twitter. I'm talking about people who have pretty respectable careers at some of these big FANG companies, right, as programmers, and just generally computer scientists. So, I mean, quantum, yes, it's cool, but I don't know. The bull case for Google has to come from its AI models and currently what they're doing with Gemini. There's an immediate use case for that. It's helping programmers, of course. But the quantum thing being the main driver of Google doesn't really make sense. So I think personally, based on what I'm hearing from them and what I think we can see out of the chart starting from this back here, is this. Right, this is kind of what I'm overly hung up on. I personally, I'm very interested in this short underneath 191.81. The question just becomes, is the chart actually going to agree with me? Is the chart going to provide that opportunity? Because right now it's not. It's not doing that at all right now, right? If it's just up here, it's suggesting that, okay, previous resistance is continuing to act as support. There's no short. And as a matter of fact, this is probably the more probable outcome. I am interested in the upper wick from yesterday's session. That's a great little like, okay, awesome excess high up here. There's the bang to end the auction. Now show me this. Show me this and I'll be interested. All right, but as of right now, can't quite jump the gun. All right, 9:20 on the clock, and we do have to get on over to QUBT. We can't forget about that. Speaking of the quantum theme, what do we see here out of the metaverse? I think that the lows become clear now. We've flip-flopped the levels. This used to be a dashed line. This used to be a solid line. We've flip-flopped it now that we have 3 equal lows. 1, 2, 3. 617. Brigade Bolt underneath. I think you have a short today with overhead supply weighing on markets into 607.75. Not to insult anybody's intelligence, but you've got about a 10-point range to be trading for there. Right? 10-point range. 617, 607.75. Not quite 10. I get it. But that's the premise. All right. So 617 top watch. If it breaches, right, looking for a little bit of overhead supply shorts. If you're just inside range, nothing to do. Neutral, would not want to be involved in here. Next up is Tesla, the one stock to rule them all that's possibly going to overthrown NVIDIA. Not in terms of market cap, but in terms of the continued parabolic move, maybe. Opening in range, not much to do here. It's not a short. It's probably not a long. This is one of these things where if you've been long from back here, it's great. New longs up here, not yet, not quite, right? I think that you've got to be a little bit more tactical in terms of a new trade entry. So I'm not thrilled about trading Tesla today. It would have to do this, brigade bolt underneath 459.25, maybe some shorts through the thin structure. Or if it's just chopping around in range, not much going on, right? Really not much going on. JP Morgan's a slug, but it is moving towards the bottom end of its balance range. This will complete the long-awaited look above and fail. Still watching the financials as an impact. Netflix, not much going on here. Midpoint of the range. Simple trade to watch here, over and under, right? Balance rules in force out of Netflix. QUBT. Let's take a look. So QUBT was on the move last night. Looks like it's giving back a little bit of the gain here headed into the open, but still opening on a gap up. So watch out for the frenzy. One of the things that you want to keep in mind here is the volume. Whenever you're trading these parabolic moves, you really want to be looking out for the volume, right? If this can overcast what happened back here, the parabolic move will continue. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the highest available strike was 24. Okay, it looks like they issued new strikes here this morning. So the highest transactions that happened yesterday were at the 24 strike. And the main reason that you talk about this is just if you're thinking about gamma squeeze as the next extrapolation of the move, if you're over 24, any of the market makers who are selling these calls to write them, right, the call writers at 24 are going to have to offset their delta, right? They're going to have to become neutral, and that means that they're going to go out and they're going to buy shares. So keep in mind that the 24 level is going to be critical here. We are not quite opening on a gap over that level, but I mean, it's within striking distance. If you're being real with yourself, a parabolic mover that's, what is this, 6 points away, not even 5 points away in the pre-market, it could get there. It could get there, and if it gets above 24, that's where things get nutty. All right, so watch 24 on QUBT. If we quickly go out to a monthly chart, what do we have this high as? That's 25.11. Not that this is going to be nearly as important. I mean, just look at the volume skew down here. Nobody was participating back in 2021. So 25 might be interesting, but 24 is a strike based on the options mechanic for a gamma squeeze. That's where you want to be paying attention. All right, so watch 24, and that's purely based on the highest available strike from yesterday's trade, right? Obviously, you have new strikes today. You have new issues over 24, so 25 and onward. You could watch out for that stuff, okay? And that is what we've got there. G, with the 10 in the chat, can we review MU? Cindy Luhu. Is Cindy Luhu back in the chat? Did I miss the great return of Cindy Luhu? If so, man, oh man, my apologies. Cindy Luhu, welcome back to the chat. And G with the 10, let's jump on over to MU. So MU Micron has earnings, of course, after the close today. Everybody's got to be aware of that. G is our resident expert in the earnings trades. G always manages to pull it off. So came and went back to Whoville. Cindy Luhu, that is, of course. Anyways, MU on the move. I believe the expected move was about $13. Okay, a little bit lower than it was yesterday. And this will change as we get closer to the bell, right? So 1234 currently, 1, 2, 3, 4. Love that. MU plus or minus 1234. So you're talking about, loosely, let's just use round numbers, somewhere up here or somewhere down here, right? Something along these lines for the earnings expected move currently. Generally, the chart has been a little lackluster in this balance range. I think that the breakout on Monday was helpful. You have an inside bar set up, a 3-bar play headed into today's session. So if you could stay over 108.50 and under this 111, I mean, you really build out, maybe early today, a pre-earnings pop into 113.85, the top of the balance range. There might be a trade there. Just be mindful if you do this with options, of course, and we don't need all the strikes now. But if we just go like this, your implied volatility is pretty hefty, right? Pretty hefty at 189.24, relative to where it's been in the past. So keep in mind that you're paying quite a bit for these premiums, right? And the easiest way to sort of illustrate this, right, is if you look at MU and the at the money call at 111, keep in mind the strike price is 111. The closest thing we have is NVIDIA, perhaps. Let's go to NVIDIA. And if you look at the at the money call, which technically is a higher strike, so it should be in theory more expensive, it's $1.23. So again, just in terms of the amount of leverage that MU is giving you versus the implied volatility that's pumping up these premiums happening here, that's just an easy comparison. The other thing that you could do is just you could come over here and you could fire up let's jump on over to the option selling study set. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at these premiums. Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord. Look at that. 90% implied volatility rank. 90% implied volatility rank. So be my guest if you want to be directional calls, puts, the whole 9 yards. Option sellers are going to make out like a bandit here. So we'll have to do some posts over on X around MU earnings, but this is not going to favor being net long calls and puts. You would need to see, to get outside of the expected move from earnings. That's the only time you're going to get paid, and that would require a move, as we were saying, pretty large. The probability of expiring cone doesn't even have you covered up there. Obviously, right? That's coming from some of that same data, but not even close. You're going to need a monster move out of MU if you're going to get paid. And I think for something to consider here is that this didn't really move on sympathy to AVGO, not as much, right? So keeping that in mind, is this a laggard setting up for disappointment? Maybe. How's that ES doing? Not quite gapping down. We've got about 2 minutes to go until the bell, just enough time for me to go nuke my coffee and send that thing back into a spiral in terms of the heat radiating out of my mug. So keep in mind, folks, we've got mission accomplished here as we come into the bell. We've got the like button all pumped up, so I appreciate that. Remember that we will be live at the 1:45 time frame to cover the FOMC live. We'll see how the market reacts. This morning on the ES, I think that you want to keep it simple. I think that you want to be P for patient off of the open. You don't want to jump the gun. You really, really don't want to do anything stupid here on an FOMC day to end out 2024. All right, final full trading week of the year. We know that we're managing risk. This is a pretty impressive move to the downside that's unwound a lot of